Welcome back, everyone, to the Fight Against Boredom Starborne's Player Podcast. We are your hosts, Feca and BranxBro. In this week's Fight Against Boredom, Albert wasn't able to show up, but we do have the CEO of Solid Clouds with us here, Grettir.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Of course, man. Thanks so much for coming on. So this one will be more just kind of an interview-ish type thing. Obviously, any kind of game stuff we can talk about, that's lovely as well. But for those that don't ordinarily get to talk to you, and it is something that is worth noting that oftentimes you do come out to the community and you do talk to a lot of the players and you come to these kind of meetings that you guys set up, and that's beyond awesome. But for those that aren't able to do that, we think this is going to be a really cool podcast for people to get a little bit more insight on exactly what you're doing. Awesome. Kind of for the people that have literally no idea of what Starborne is, how we would like to get started is for what would you say your best like elevator pitch is for the game? If you have to say like a 30-second spiel, like a lot of times when I'm trying to tell my friends about the game, I'm like, I have my little thing where I'll say maybe it's like a space civilization, like the Civ games, like instead of turns, there's times, but like what from your point of view would be how you would like to tell it?
So, there are a few versions of this. It just depends on like if I'm talking to my mom or something, or my uncle or aunt. I usually go and describe, do you know, like Monopoly, sorry. And then like usually every single person I've asked knows that like board game.
Okay.
So how I describe it to them is yes. So in Monopoly you have like 100 squares or something on a map. You own certain streets. You have like are playing with 4 people, and it takes an evening to finish. But in Starborne, you have like 10,000 people. You have 1 million squares, and it takes 3 months to finish. And everyone does their turns on the same time. But the shortest version of what Starborne is, it's basically an MMO save in space.
Okay.
And
how far back you go. Like you go all the way to the bottom, like Monopoly. Like that's something everyone knows. That's
the thing. I've used that a lot because we do have quite a few local investors here in Iceland which have invested in Solid Clouds, and many of those are not gamers. So I have to be able to explain the game in some fashion. So Monopoly is probably what I use 60% of the time.
I think it's a super fitting description because, like, in my family, for example, we don't play Monopoly anymore. People can get really upset, right? and if you're ahead, it feels really good, and I think that translates very well into Starborne.
Yeah, exactly. But if I usually poke people, so if people have played the old browser games, and I talk about this being the next gen of those Travian Tribal Wars, even old. I've never played old game, but old game and games like that. But so did that answer the question?
I think it did.
I love that,
and I think you kind of led into the next question just a little bit, depending on what I know. The question is, what made you stop your former life, your former employment, and just do this, become a game developer and the CEO of Solid Clouds?
Well, the main thing was just frustration, to be honest. I have always been a gamer. I used to like play Ultima Online a lot back in the day. And I used to have like an eBay shop in that game. So I did play that professionally for like 2 years. Not as an esport thing, but more as like collecting gold and stuff like that. I played Meridian 59, so I've always been into these MMOs. And then EVE Online came along. Those guys, I know them when they started, and I invested a little bit of money into that company. But we were always playing these strategy board games. So and we did that for many years. We were like having these big Napoleon board games, and then after that came the play by mail games. I'm not sure if you're familiar with those.
A little tiny bit, a little bit
Yeah.
before me, but yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, and then the browser games came. So I like hardcore multiplayer games. Loved them, played them since I was a kid, and I'm like 43 now. And but most of the time in all these games, you had a map that was relevant, and I loved what they did in Tribal Wars and Travian, but their map just sucked. And when I played those games for a few years and just nothing happening, and then the mobile games came, and I kind of felt there was something missing. And in 2010, I just kind of gave up on waiting for the game I wanted to play, so I just decided to make it. So
yeah, that's brilliant, man.
Yeah.
That's so cool. Yeah, because this genre in general has had definitely some ups and downs. The ones you mentioned before, came out so long ago that I think a lot of like newer generation players really haven't even heard of most games in the genre. You can't really say Trivian, or you said Ultima, but there's a Lords of Ultima one game that came out like this as well, and stuff like that pretty much died around even when I was in high school, and that's how I kind of got into the genre. So it is interesting what you're doing. You really, not a lot of competition, but kind of it's its own competition, right? Like you're fighting yourself there.
Yeah, but it's still all the market. How do I say it? We still have to acquire customers, and we still have to monetize, and we still have to like do a lot of the things that the other games are kind of dealing with. But that being said, it is quite unique, and we want to have it unique, and we want to do something that's never been done before.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So would the summary be that you're trying to make your gaming dream come true?
Yeah, does that sound egotistical or?
I don't think.
No.
And it fits my segue into the next question really well. So the question would be, is this dream similar to how you dreamt it? Or was there some sort of rude awakening? And if so, what is it?
So, I would say, like, when I started it, it was supposed to be much simpler than how you see Starborne today. But more simple graphics. There were like 3 of us, but then it kind of, because I didn't have any experience in the industry before I started. Then it started catching on with the locals here in Iceland, and we got the art director from CCP to Evenline to come over, and one of the original game designers also to come over to help us. So it got a lot bigger than the project than I was initially planning for it. And it just looks much better. I'm not sure if you've seen these ancient screenshots of Starborne. It was...
They've been floating around, yeah.
Yeah. So I would say, if you'd asked me way back, like, no, it was supposed to be a lot smaller in scale, I guess.
Are you overall happy about the direction it went? Like, are you happy that it's kind of bigger, or does it feel like it's kind of a little bit overwhelming? Is that kind of like one of the awakenings of it?
So I'm happy with a lot about Starborne, and I think we can improve in other areas. I really like how it looks and feels, and in some cases plays. But it's kind of maybe a little bit more of a more niche than I wanted a broader audience, I guess. A little bit.
There's still time.
There's still time, yeah. I would say, like, I want Starborne to be something you can play all year round. You don't always have to take these hardcore matches, but I want people to have a reason to log in and be doing something. That's kind of where I want to take it. So
sure.
Somebody in chat is saying, so you're saying the game is too hardcore? Is that?
It has been, yeah.
We can attest to that. I would definitely agree. Now and then it does feel a little much.
But it also just is a question of pacing, I guess. Especially after we shortened the round in A9, it was kind of too intense.
It did condense a lot of stuff, and I know a lot of other games like this often have 8-month long servers. Kind of more to me, it felt like it was a minimum before, and then you come to Starborne and it's been like 2, now down to 2 months, was 3 months. So even the 3 months to me felt pretty short, and then you guys condensed it again. I definitely feel that amount of stuff. Once again, there's plus sides to that, right? Like you're getting a lot more. One thing that a lot of people say games like this, they're often described as like boring or I don't have enough to do, and that's often not the case once you get past the first few days in Starborne. But then it often becomes too far, where it's like, man, I'm on this thing basically all day. Even like sneaking out during lunch at work and trying to log in and make sure you're not getting attacked. Checking your text messages, your Discord, being like, you might get an attack. So there's definitely the back and forth on it.
I don't want it to be misunderstood. The battles, the politics, kind of that all belongs in Starborne. I'm just saying I want people to have more things to aim at also down the road.
For sure, yeah, and I think that makes a better community overall. If you don't have to cut each other's throats at every turn, and you can have maybe some other things going on, or if you get too far behind, doesn't feel like, oh, well, I'll never catch up in that one specific thing. Giving them the other options, I think, yeah.
The thing is, people, like, there are very few people that want to constantly be PvPing for like 10 weeks or like 12 months straight in a row. Even let's take EVE Online. I know that game, which is thought to be one of the more hardcore titles out there. So the community is kind of split there. There's like 50% who just like the industrial thing, 50 to 60% to missions and stuff like that. And then you have, I don't know, 20% or something that does PvE and PvP, and then you have, I think it's just 10% who solely do PvP. Like it accommodates more playstyles. That's what I'm saying.
Right. Is that something you kind of want to aim for as well? Like, are those like ratios you think are good, or how do you feel about that in general?
I don't think Starborne will ever get those numbers, but I think it can be less binary than it is right now. So I think, like I said, I would very much like Admiral's a little bit burnt out after the tournament server.
yeah.
Let's just take that example. Let's say he could jump on a game right now and just do something, aim for something without having to burn out during that run. I would love for that to be able to be something in Starborne.
We're seeing stuff like that coming now with more than one thing to chase. If recognition is what you're after, or a place on the podium on the end of the server. So down the road, maybe there'll be more things like that if this shows to be successful.
Definitely. But right now the priority is just, hey, we have Starborne. Yes, it's hardcore. It is a need. Our aim right now is, and priority is just to make the best version of that. So I'm talking about a little bit more down the road, but I just want to see Starborne kind of grow into the fullest potential, and I want a lot of people to enjoy this. I don't also want to
it already, right? Like it's a long story and a long process for you. And in this process, did you make many mistakes, or are there mistakes that you learn from, mistakes that you regret, or there things that you'd wish you never did, or things that you would want to bring back into the current version of the game?
I guess maybe. So there are a few mistakes that we've done, like expected player behavior, and that's always something where this is very hard to predict. Maybe it's just there are a couple of things. We've been trying to do so much at the same time. So basically, we launch an alpha. We scale up the servers at the same time. We have to kind of fix what we did. Like it takes a while to kind of clean up after the launch, but we just started prepping for the next alpha like a month after the launch. So it's maybe we in retro I might have not scaled up as much as we did in A8 and A9. I would think that's something that probably was a mistake, but hence I don't know. Maybe it was the right thing. Like 6 months after we launched.
So I am interested in the player prediction that you kind of hit on. Like, what is maybe an example of like something you guys like thought for sure would happen and didn't happen, or you thought would never happen and definitely happens like constantly?
Troop carrier.
Troop carriers, yes. I would say like A9 is. So basically, we had a lot of feedback from A8. It was the feedback was the middle game was too boring, it is too slow, picks up in the end. And so we just decided to add TCs, FOBs, shorten around, and just gave people a lot of stuff at the beginning of the game, and I expected everyone to just be hardcore fighting from day one until like the server, the round ends. Which some did, but it also just burned out a lot of people. And coalitions is maybe the other thing. So one of the pillars of Starborne was always supposed to be diplomacy, and we were expecting people to kind of switch coalitions more than they did, but we ended up having everything set in stone even before the round started, which I'm not saying I expected everyone to be backstabbing their neighbors constantly, but I would at least wanted to see something going on once in a while, like people changing sides or making short-term deals or just stuff like that.
So your community was too nice, right? That's the problem. Why don't you guys hate each other?
Stop being friends already.
No, yeah, but the thing is, people just picked a side at the beginning or before the server started, and it never changed.
Yeah. Without a doubt, and obviously, you know, we're definitely we end up doing the same thing because we join the game, right? And it's like, oh man, you know, we're getting crushed because all these people already have it. Let's use this server to just, you know, don't do any short-term deals, get your name known, grab up your people, and okay, next server, you know, we can play because I think a lot of it is like, you know, you really can't trust people. So it's like, if I can just, you know, put the olive branch out, get a little bit of trust here, and we move forward together. And then if you start winning, there's no reason to ever backstab. So it's like, okay, now we have something working. We're trying to do this.
Yeah,
I definitely see it happening naturally in every game. But yeah.
Yeah, but maybe I'm overthinking this. Maybe Starborne is just, let's say we connect the servers together. We have a fluent lore which players can affect and support certain factions and gain points with those factions. And the servers being, let's say, some are more important than others to affect kind of the what's going on. Who's kind of winning the world of Starborne? Maybe in some cases the servers are kind of just the battles themselves. The kind of politics are kind of happening outside the game.
Right, I kind of going with it instead of against it. Like, you know, it is kind of seen. But I do see that you also see the negative sides of it as well. So I totally get where you're coming from with the changes and stuff like that. because it is really tough for a new player to come in. It was super disheartening to, when I first joined the game, and it's like, oh, well, you either join, Admiral's group or die, or one of these other, maybe 2 other groups. But I think that's also just a really low player base, right? Where if I play a server and I go to the next server, people might actually remember you because it's like, okay, we only have X amount of. So that might also be fixed, as you guys scale up larger. And if you're more rapidly releasing servers, I see that being less of a problem. But I think that's been touched on as well before.
Sure. But yes, there are a bunch of mistakes. I kind of personally feel that A9 didn't go in the right direction. But there are some positives there. It's just kind of how I feel.
Oh yeah, it was very fun, but it was very it broke you down when you're trying to play at that speed. But that's any game you try to play competitive.
Sure.
But,
yeah.
Did you, during their time as the CEO of Solid Clouds, have to delegate a lot of work? I guess the answer is yes, but like, how does that feel? Giving away some more and more control over what started out as your dream.
I have mixed feelings. I also enjoy building up the company, but yes, it is. It's very hard, like, for another person to come in and just share exactly your vision. They're always gonna put their touch on it. In one way or another. So yes, it was hard at times. But I can tell you one thing, that I have been much more hands-on personally since beginning of February. Even before that a little bit, for the open beta. So I made the conscious decision of kind of I'm still the CEO, but I put a lot of things on hold, which I'm normally doing.
So you dialed back a bit of the delegation and
I'm much more involved in game design than I've been in like a couple of years at least.
Did you miss it?
Sorry?
Did you miss it? Is that one of the reasons why you got back into being more involved?
I kind of do, yes, and also just felt it's needed. I mean, I always looked at our betas as experimental phases. We could try this, try that. I wasn't sure about this. Let's just try it, see what happens, kinda. Beta, we have to follow up on this, and if it's gonna, like, I just wanted to be involved myself. Like, it's gonna, if this doesn't go as planned, then it's just gonna be more on me than anyone.
Hands-on, serious business now.
Yes, kinda. I felt that was needed. No, I'm not saying Snookums and the other guys didn't do a fantastic job, because they did, but I felt we needed all the brain power on this.
Yeah, that's really cool, and I think we definitely see it. We're seeing a lot of updates. I one of the really big things that I know I've liked, and I think a lot of other people like seeing, was this little pre-test server that we're kind of in the middle of right now. I think that was a really big deal for us, and it felt like, that was one of the biggest takeaways that we were all kind of really maybe a little bit upset about, like for the tournament server, when we kind of saw the state of the tournament server, like, oh man, this is going to be pretty buggy. Obviously there's a timeline, so you got to hit it. But then to see you guys notice that, and kind of from our end at least see, like, okay, they put out this 2-week server. We've seen a lot of bugs. We've been crunching them. We see you guys in real time putting them out. And definitely from someone playing a video game, it's really cool to see, like, development team be so hands-on, be like, all right, like, we don't want to make the same mistakes. And it is noticed from our end. So
yeah, and another thing, we like, normally after alpha test. We launched, let's say we launched A8,
Mhm.
and we follow up on it, and but a month, kind of like maybe 3 weeks to 4 weeks, 70% of the team has started working on something else.
Right.
The next version or something that we are like thinking long term for the backend. It right now we don't have any plans on major. We are not gonna jump back into a development cave after we launch the beta. We are gonna be still hands on until it's like bug free almost.
Right. Do you
So
feel
that-
like the? Sorry, you go.
No, that's just we are gonna follow through on this. It's not like, hey, this was an experiment. No, this is the real deal. We have to follow through on this, and we have to be. We are gonna be polishing well after we launch. We want most of the bugs out, and also just visual updates for the client, bringing it more alive. Quality of life items, optimizations. We want this to run as smoothly as it can.
Right. Basically, do you feel like at least most of the core mechanics are there now, right? I know a lot of between like from A8 to A9 and from A9 to now, we've seen giant restructuring. But you feel like maybe most of those big restructurings are done, so that's why you're kind of able to focus on the kind of stuff you just mentioned.
As you see, we are not adding new frameworks in. Like
Right.
we are not adding TCs or
FABs or the new
FOBs
building structure, removing supply, removing Navy bases, all stuff like that. Really flipped the game on its head.
Yeah, we were kind of more cutting out right now. I mean, we took out coalitions for this.
Right.
And Navy bases, but that's just one outpost. But cutting down on TCs for now. But we just want to kind of min-max our current systems, make the best use of them. And also just use other frameworks which we haven't maybe used to the fullest potential. For example, a map. We can do a lot with a map. We can have different zones with different rule sets who behave differently.
Yeah, that was definitely a big one. I didn't expect you to be able to do that because you never did that previously, as far as I know.
Exactly. And and the map is one of the biggest things in Starborne. It's one of the things that makes the game, and we haven't been using that properly before. So I wanted just to kind of, rather than trying to figure out the next game mechanic, why don't we just use what we have in a better way?
I love to hear that. That's awesome.
Yeah, and finally, are putting quality of life ahead of many other things. Like we are seeing the map paints, and we are gonna add more of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, the community has sung praises of these like little UI things that you really don't notice, but it's awesome. All right, I have one question, and maybe this is kind of like a game mechanic-y thing, but are there any other games that you're playing right now that you're maybe drawing inspiration from, or you're seeing it and you're like, oh, this works, or this doesn't work? I know a lot of us around like our communities and stuff, we've been playing stuff like Solaris, so we come back to Starborne, we're like, oh man, why can't I use WASD to move around the map? Or like, small things like that. Is there anything like that you're experiencing? Or maybe have experienced in the past as well? Like that
say this. I actually, the last game I played for like a couple of months was Raid Shadow Legends.
I haven't heard of it. What is it?
It's kind of a gacha money grab thing. Mobile.
So you started adding lots more money grab stuff in
No.
this. I'm just kidding. I love it, guys. Loot boxes.
Loot boxes. Oh, rare heroes. Oh, you can spend $100,000 on day one, and you can still spend 300 more on day two or something. No.
I wonder that you haven't heard of it, Feca. It's all over the internet. You watch one video on YouTube and they mention it like 3 times.
Yeah, I pulled it up and I know the pictures. Yeah.
No, that's kind of a rise of Civilization before that, which is a mobile game also.
So is that making you maybe want to push mobile a little bit? We know there has been some talk of mobile, and you have a potentially an in-house version right now that you're kind of brewing up, right?
Yeah, so one of the things we did last year was we refactored a lot of the backend systems, and we are using Signal R as our kind of network communication, and it's very simple for us to connect to from the game to web pages or do mobile apps and stuff like that. Which was an issue for us before. So we did throw up a mobile app. It was very quick to get like the notifications and the basics in. And we see we can pretty much have up to 70% of the game. Well, once you concentrate on that, it's very easy to add to that.
Right.
Yeah. I would say the biggest thing is the map, and also like another big thing about like if you're gonna pull our like serious resources into that is like, are we gonna market this on mobile?
Right.
I mean, it's one thing to do a mobile version for people who know the game via the PC, or another thing that if you're gonna present the mobile version as like kind of standalone, you can, and if you're marketing that to people and their first experience of Starborne is on a mobile, then that really needs to be presentable.
Yeah, that's interesting. You don't really think about a company thinking about whether they should do a companion app or like a real full thing. I know obviously everyone would beg and plead for the whole real thing, but obviously that's a lot more resources and such. But I know a lot of people are waiting on that full experience. It's like, man, because a lot of us, are playing on, the Google Chrome remote just from our phones anyways. And it is a little touchy, but you do have to know the game. You have to download the game. So I haven't really thought of it.
Given the hypothetical situation where you had a finished mobile version as well as the desktop version, which one would you want your customers to interact with first and discover the game through?
PC client.
So that's always like the main focus, and the app would be more like a tool to help the client.
Yeah, I mean, my passion is also like, I'm not the person who can play in the political map. I need the default one, and I want to have like immersion out of this. I know like Snookums, he could be watching Excel and having so much fun, like Starborne on Excel.
I mean, for everybody who knows the game, who's played it, and who is not paying too much attention to the art on the map, I highly encourage to just move the camera closer, hit Control G, Control H to remove the hex grid and the UI, and just look at the stuff on the map. It surprised me, really.
Yeah. And we are gonna do more, like we are gonna start adding some effects to the outposts, making ships be moving around between them and between your stations, and just bringing the map alive. I also want to, down the line, rework the missions a bit and combat, and I want to do some fun stuff, like these encounters where you actually see stuff on the map, something's happening, you see a couple of industrials moving, and then zoom down to it, you see then a few corvettes following and shooting. It's like, I want the game to feel alive, and I would very much like new players who enter this to experience something they've never seen before. Like my first, I still remember my first experience in Ultima Online. Like, I've never experienced that. I was always playing these single player role playing games, and I kind of zoomed into a town, and there were people there talking, and then I walked out and went to a crossroad, and there was like knights running around, and then some guy stopped and talked to me, and I was like, wow, this is cool. And then some PKers came and just killed him right in front of me. I can never forget that. Yeah, I was scarred forever. I was like, what? Why did they do that? What's going on?
Why are people being assholes?
Yeah. I'm not saying we'll get that experience from Starborne, but let's say just, hey, you join a MMO strategy game, but the kind of world feels alive. And I haven't seen many games do that well. So I want them to kind of remember the first time they logged into Starborne.
I think something that a lot of people that have played Starborne for a bit and played like more high end, I guess you could call it, is that we would call it a lifestyle. If you play a server of Starborne, the entirety of the server duration, you are playing it. You're only logging off in spirit, kind of. Is that intended, or is that something you would wish that our view of it would change, or?
No, I want to keep that. What like I was trying to say before is that that's why I kind of took the example with Atman. I would want him to be involved in the product, even though he's not playing a competitive round.
So you definitely turned it into like a game design concept of, you always play Starborne.
You always have a reason to do something.
Right.
It's
not like a lot of other
play,
games.
even though you don't play right now. That's
yeah, it's like if you're playing MMOs, you might take a period where you're just crafting stuff for a month, like harvesting resources or doing that, and then you might. I'm gonna be raiding a lot the next month.
But even in the MMO, you can log off for 2 days, potentially. I know like a lot of hardcore people may not, but you could log off for 2 days, come back, on a Thursday and be like, all right, guys, and we can go do the raid again. Where Starborne, it's like, man, you missed 2 days. Where have you been? I've been texting you. I've been hitting you up on Discord. Where your queue's been?
Yeah.
Half of your stations are gone, dude.
Yeah.
I'm not saying I want to change that. I'm just like, if you don't have time for that, then you can do something else. We will always have these competitive rounds where you kind of have to beat the server in a PvP victory. But I also want you to have a reason to enter a chill server and just work on your account, or trying to get these badges or those vanity items, or do something else, or influence the story in another way.
Yeah, I'd be very excited for those kind of things, like actual account progression. Right now, we have a little bit of it with like the in-game, like the policies and stuff like that. But yeah, just seeing like, oh, he's played X amount of servers, he's won X amount of servers, his total influence through all servers, or something along.
Oh, that's coming actually.
Right. Yeah, I'd been hinted at that. I've kind of heard about that, hearing it kind of confirmed.
I've seen some of the preliminary badge stuff. And it's interesting. It immediately made me think of like, okay, to achieve this, I would play a server in a certain way and just like min-max that one thing and not care about much else to just achieve that one badge task.
Yeah, and that would be like, I would very much like to see you join a server where you're aiming for a badge rather than winning the server, or aiming to like help a faction within the Starborne, like gain some influence with the faction.
That's definitely a good venue to add some flavor, some spice to the Starborne matches.
Definitely.
Yeah, any kind of layers like that just give me the other reason. Of course, I'm logging in, but for a lot of people, it's like that secondary thing. What else can I get? Why did I play this game opposed to another one? So any kind of that account adding stuff is always.
Yeah, definitely.
hey guys, let's all bomb BranxBro. He's trying to get his badge. and so even seeing like stuff like that, you know, one of your friends is going for something or helping.
Well, I'm aiming to get bombed out of the game first badge, so please do.
Yeah. It's Guy Kirigatsu for you. But, we have another one. You know, with an outlet like this, is there any like specific messages you really want your players to know? Maybe apparently attack each other more, backstab each other, or anything along those lines that you just like. You may have seen people asking a lot of questions, or something you see a lot that you just want to put out there.
Yeah. So I want everyone to bomb Snookums.
Yes. Well, I guess they're going to be incognito from here on out, right? I think he may have said that.
Yeah.
So locating the correct Snookums, maybe as a badge.
Find
bombing out Snookums. Find Snookums and bomb them out.
I do have a couple of things. First off, I mean, we are a small company and a small community, and I would very much for us to kind of continue be welcoming to new players and help them out. And I know a lot of you do this, but just let's continue to do that. And I love how you guys are joining up and helping us trying to create some online content, as in guides and videos and stuff like that for the open beta. It's really gonna help. But yes, so I would say let's continue to have the community non-toxic and to kind of see it grow and be a community that people can be proud of being a part of, I guess.
Yeah,
that sounds good.
I really hope people that hear like it is cool to have a CEO of a gaming company say that and really push it, and maybe hearing it from there maybe will get us one step closer. But that's obviously what we're always trying to aim for. So
yeah, I know I know you guys are I mean, you're super helpful, and just having this podcast is awesome. I love listening to this. But I'm just saying, we need to be mindful of it and continue to be so. Another thing I was going to say. Yeah, did I bomb Snookums? The mention that?
Hit it twice just to make sure he's not joking, guys. Oh man, it just so you get ahead, right?
Yeah.
Once you have the global leaderboards, Grettir is going to need to be higher up in Snookums.
High up, yeah. I have to beat them. So when we started the pre-beta, I was at like rank 40 or something, and he was at rank 20 or 15, I don't remember. And he was giving me shit. And after I reached like rank 10 or something, and he was still like 15, he quit.
Did he make excuses?
Yes, he did.
Oh man, I imagine you calling him into your office. Hey, Snuggums, can you come in the office real quick? Sits down.
Yeah.
Loser. What's up with your rank here? That's when you look at something on my computer real quick. It's the leaderboards.
That's why I'm the CEO and you're not. Take that.
Print it out. Print out the leaderboards. Put it up in the office. That's awesome, man.
So yeah. So what's your kind of gut feeling about the open beta? How do you see this progressing for the first few servers?
The word we've been using is interesting. I think we've kind of keyed that term or whatever into everything. I'm amazingly excited to see how this map goes out. Kind of like you were saying, predicting player where they're actually going to do. I think is going to be incredibly challenging from a leader's perspective. So I'm really interested to see that challenge and see how we can work with that. There's only 6 arms, 6 Dyson spears. If you want to go for that win, there's only 6 even potential candidates. So that's wildly interesting just to think about, okay, will we be able to secure our arm? Will 2 people go there? Are we going to be able to live kind of side by side? Where will the lines be drawn? It's so much different than the 19 exact same hexes before, where if you went into a new territory, someone was already there, they've been building up there for weeks. You're kind of invading their home territory. Now it's kind of we're both trying to settle the Wild West together, and who can do it better, and where do you draw the lines, and where do you build your fences. So all that from a political standpoint is like how I look at a lot of this stuff, and I'm extremely excited to see how it works out. And then especially, as you said, like there might be other servers that have different kind of goals or only one of the win conditions. I think satisfies a lot of other people that are having kind of some negative thoughts about like this first server and like, oh man, why is this and that? I'm excited to see how this first one plays out, but then also what we can do from here after.
Yeah, definitely. And I can tell you one thing, that we were talking about player behaviors, and I definitely think we need to iterate on this map mode, and we'll do that after we have some experience with it. But we'll also be throwing out new map modes, and the one I'm thinking about, it should arrive 8 to let's say 10, 12 weeks after we launch. It's gonna be a smaller map mode with only a territorial victory. And I'm also thinking about messing with the fleet operating limits on that one. So have it in a way you can only attack with like 10 fleets.
Oh
Man.
And you can only have like 20 fleets on a station or something like that.
That sounds more like knife fighting. I like it.
Zerg's happy in the chat. That's immediately how I went.
I would say going into open beta, coming from having played Alpha 8, going into Alpha 9, and then moving into a tournament with all the changes that have been coming through the iterations, and going into this one, it's very different. So it'll take me time to adapt. The pacing is different, the way I would approach the map, and how I plan out my stations, and how I would assume that certain expansion by other groups would happen. At this point, all I can do is guess, really, or make an educated guess. I can't really know.
Yeah.
And trying to look at it from a new player standpoint, which, due to me being biased, I really can't. I'd assume that it's discovery. You start on the outside, you see the spiral arms, you see the black hole in the middle, you see that people are moving in, and you might think, oh, they probably know something I don't. Let's follow them, and really move through the map instead of just staying where you spawned, kind of, hopefully.
I mean, some will do that, and that's also fine. But they can join the party later on. I mean, this is kind of one of the issues we had in A7. We had these initial zones there, not as elaborate as in this version, but the problem is, late game you could never join the action because the distances were always so huge, and we had a different supply system then. You could never move your fleets away from your.
Let's not talk about supply, please.
You can leave that one buried.
But yeah, play behavior, nobody knows. I mean, we are doing guesses, and if I had more time, I would mess around with more things on this map. But it's hard to say. We just have to see how it plays. But you can expect us to iterate on this map mode. It's not gonna stay like this, exactly like this, for 10 months without us making adjustments.
No.
But then again, we are also gonna have like these different game modes, and I'm also very excited about those. The thing is, we can just do so much with the current mechanics. Like, let's say it's a territorial victory, different fleet operating limits. You can only attack with a certain amount of fleets. Of course, we need to balance around that. It's gonna change the game completely, right?
I think we're all interested to see how this will play out, and I think we'll all be surprised to some extent on how it'll actually play out. So yeah, we're coming up on the 50-minute mark here, and to wrap it all up, I would like to hit you with a double tap of questions. A nice one, and one that might be a bit of a kidney punch.
Oh
man, I'm not even aware. So we'll see this.
So the easy, nice question is: in these multiplayer strategy games, is it the strategy or the multiplayer part that you like more?
Uh, I've always been better on the political front. But I'm not bad at strategy, so I like the diplomacy, and I like the mind games.
So it's definitely the multiplayer part. That's interesting to hear. Cool to know. All right.
I mean, I remember I entered a 50,000 player server in Travian, and I didn't know anyone. And those games were like split into 4 quadrants. And by a certain kind of, I want to say, a good diplomacy, I was able to control 1/4 of the game, and then we were able to win the server. And we were up against pre-mates that didn't have like 100 people, as we were seeing against Starborne, but a few hundred people.
That makes me wonder if you're involved in shadow politics at times, and we just don't know.
Yeah.
Seattle politics aren't bad; they're just different.
I'll take that as a yes, then. All right. So moving to the difficult question. So, convince me, why should I play Starborne instead of other strategy multiplayer games?
There is no other game like Starborne, is there? So if you want to play Starborne in a game where you kind of are building up your empire in a safe style on the map, and if you like min-maxing, if you like talking to people and plan out with your alliance, there is no other game like this. Can you name one?
Not active, and definitely not with the future. This is, for me at least. I'm all in. You got me, so you don't need to sell me. But I don't know who Branx is looking for.
Oh, okay.
Dude, I'm already here. I'm already sold.
We're doing a podcast, but yeah, no, and that's totally what I always say. Give me another game that's anywhere kind of close to this, and I think you guys are doing a fantastic job bringing back life to the genre and doing stuff like you're saying. I think the biggest change too is stuff. Name a map that does what your map is,
and
it's really interactive.
And we have 6 factions, and like, sure, you could play a mobile game like where you're building up a city state and teleporting that city around, but is that really a strategy game?
Yeah. I totally agree, man.
So
I often would describe this to my friends as imagine playing EVE Online but zoomed out.
Yeah.
You run an empire of players. And that kind of gets them intrigued. But then they always tell me they don't have time to play this game.
Well, I hope but it's a little bit slower, the game pace than was before. But I actually think it will pick up at like week 6.
So you're fine with it being slowish to begin with and then ramping up later?
We'll just have to see. I can tell you one thing: these fast game paces have not helped us retain people. And I have real data behind them.
Yeah,
I prefer a slower game pace myself. I know some people don't.
That's now you get me to the point where I just want to break into your office in the night and just dive into the vault of data and spreadsheets and just look at numbers because I love numbers. So that's what happened.
But it doesn't mean the early game doesn't need tweaking. I'm not saying it doesn't.
All right.
But I absolutely love how I'm doing this right now. I'm trying to break into some area, and there are NPCs in my way, and like I have an objective there. Either outclaim them or try to figure out how I can get rid of them. And I think the current state of the map is just offering a lot more content than before. And just it's it's interesting to see how it's kind of shaping up, where people are going and what they're going for, and seeing kind of the colors evolve on the map.
Yeah, we definitely have a few interesting months ahead of us to see how this all pans out, how people interact with it.
Yeah, definitely.
We can probably wrap it up there. Thank you so much, Grettir, for doing this. Thank you for your other guys that have come on, Sniggums, Omni. Doing this has been really cool. And I really hope I hope other people appreciate it the same way. So we have a little bit of live audience. I know they do. So at least we have them.
Yeah.
I hope so too, and it was a real pleasure and an honor to finally be in here. And I hope we can repeat this in a couple of months.
Oh
yeah.
Happily.
Go back on our speculation.
Yeah.
We were so wrong!
We were so wrong. I'm sorry, Grettir.